We love it when people come to talk to us about food because it's one of our favorite things. If we're not in the garden, we're inside cooking. Marie Hegler is an area agent in Greenville, South Carolina, and we're going to talk about some ways that Thanksgiving might even be tastier than normal and actually a little bit healthier for us.
That's right. I know it's the meal of indulgence, but we're going to talk about some ways that you can kind of make it healthier from a sodium standpoint. And these ways you can also use not just for the holidays, but throughout your meals, for week meals, any kind of meal.
It can be a way that you live your life.
Oh, exactly. That's what we're
now,
talking
you've
about.
got two interesting little containers over here, and one of them has 2 teaspoons of salt. And you said that that is about what we normally, an average person eats, takes in every day?
Yeah, 2 teaspoons of salt, which is roughly about 2,300 milligrams or so. Oh no, 2 teaspoons of salt is double that. So, and that is what, as average Americans, that we consume on a daily basis.
And is that good?
That's not so good.
It's not. That's high.
That's pretty high.
Okay.
We kind of stress 2,300 or below.
And is that what you would find in the 1 teaspoon?
1 teaspoon of salt.
Okay.
And so for an average Thanksgiving meal, one sitting, the American averagely eats 2,000 milligrams of sodium. So that is almost hitting the most you should have in a day.
In a day, and that's just the middle of the day.
So that's
and
what
then
we're
there are
talking
leftovers.
About. I know, and you're going to eat it again.
Yeah. Okay.
But there's ways to cut back on salt without decreasing the flavor of foods. There's a way to enhance the flavor.
I've got, you aren't going to believe it, but since we haven't had a hot frost, I've still got some beans that I picked in my garden last week. And so I'm going to have fresh beans. Is it good to start with fresh produce if you can?
Fresh is best. Frozen is also good because it's chosen. Frozen is chosen during the peak of the season. And then there's canned goods too that you can purchase, but you want to make sure they're the lower sodium, or if you're watching your sodium, no salt added. You can rinse and drain them. That'll cut the sodium level. And if you can your own green beans, that's even better because you can monitor the amount of salt you put in it. Like those green beans have no salt added to them.
Oh, you don't have to put salt in them?
No, it's not for preserving. It's actually just for flavor.
I didn't know that.
Candy. So, but of course, I mean, I'm going to add some salt when I cook it.
Okay.
But you can, you want to kind of cut the salt down so that you can add your own, or if you use like foods that have salt in them, you want to add as much salt to them.
So if I've got a recipe for a green bean casserole and I'm going to use canned green beans, I can pour the water off and
you can rinse them if you want.
I could rinse it, and that'll take some of the salt off. And then, although my recipe might say to add a teaspoon of salt, you would say maybe taste it before I just automatically put that in there.
Exactly, exactly. And you can always cut back and then add some a little bit later and see how your
You can add it, but you can't take it out.
That's exactly right, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then the same goes for, you use a lot of soups for casseroles.
We do, yeah.
And also stock, and you can get unsalted and no salt added versions of that. You can also make your own, so you can add as much salt to that as you want. Because most of the salt that we consume is not from necessarily adding salt during cooking.
It's not what we put in the kitchen.
It's from the convenience foods that we eat and the highly processed foods that we eat. Those have a lot of added sodium to it that we don't really know, and so we're adding salt on top of salt, and that's what kind of bumps our sodium levels up.
Okay.
So it's not, salt is great, and I love to use it, but using it sparingly is always the better option. And then you can add different flavor agents so that you can cut back on that salt
Well, what are
level.
some of the ones that you have right on hand in your kitchen?
So I have some balsamic vinegar.
Which has a really wonderful flavor. Yeah.
And then you have all kinds of vinegars and also citrus fruits, so that's like an acid. Acids are a good way to add flavor without having to add extra salt to it because you give that tang, it brightens up the dish. I'm also adding good fats like olive oil, nuts to things if it...
And now we have so many interesting oils. We have sesame oil and things like that that have their own flavors,
and that's a very unique flavor. And that kind of fat also enhances the flavor of the dish without having to throw on a bunch more salt.
Okay. And you know what I've enjoyed doing? I got one of those microplaners, and I've just found it to be wonderful because when I make green beans, if I squeeze lemon juice on them, it makes them gray. But if I put a little bit of the zest, it gives it that sparkling flavor without turning the color.
That is my very favorite kitchen gadget. I love to use zest. I use zest in a lot of things.
It's a lot of fun, isn't it?
But that is a great kitchen gadget to have on hand. Because it adds that flavor without, and it's, I don't know, it's just a great lemon, orange, lime, all those flavors, and the zest is great.
Now, it wouldn't be, well, I don't think I could cook without garlic and onions, and they really bring a tremendous boost to the flavor.
And that's a great flavor addition without having to add as much salt. And also in dried versions, so if you wanted to get garlic powder or onion powder, that's another way. So I have a little hodgepodge of different
Now,
herbs.
let me ask you one thing. If I'm,
Yes, ma'am.
because they make onion salt and garlic salt, but if you get the onion powder or the garlic powder, then you're not adding extra salt. Is that correct?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
So then you could add your own salt to it, but you're not just adding garlic salt.
Because I bet if we looked at the label, probably the first ingredient of garlic salt is probably salt.
It probably is.
Okay.
I don't know that for a fact, but it's probably
Okay. So what are some of the ones you enjoy?
So I've got some bay leaves, I've got some dried thyme, and also
Yes.
have some fresh
Fresh,
thyme.
all right.
Some oregano, there's some chili powder, some turmeric, some paprika, I think, some cumin.
Because we eat with our eyes too, don't we?
Yes.
So some of these things that add color, that's just another way to make us
And the
things
aroma.
taste-
we
Yes,
use in
that's
ours.
right. Yeah.
So this aroma,
yeah.
you can smell this pungent
Uh-huh.
spice, and that's a great way. And then again, you can, you have a lot of those seasonings that have been made for you, and those have a lot of salt in them. So if you can make your own, that's cheaper version of doing something. And also, it's more healthy because then you can add salt to that, or salt after, so you can make a taco seasoning or a poultry seasoning using
sure
your
you
own.
could.
And if you're wondering, like, what do I put in there? Just look on the label of poultry seasoning or taco seasoning and see what's in there, and then add those spices
Like
to it.
poultry seasoning has a lot of sage in it, so I would know to put some sage in.
Exactly,
Okay.
dried
and I
sage.
don't have to add all that extra salt.
And then you can add salt to your dish when you're cooking it, or you can add it to the blend as well, but it's not going to be because it's probably, in those cases, it's probably the main ingredient, salt, and then the other herbs and spices. Of course, we have fresh herbs.
And now we're so lucky they've got them in the refrigerator. I mean, in the grocery store.
great.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can get thyme, rosemary, sage. These are the winter herbs that I think about. Great for roasting, which is another great way of cutting back on your salt content of a food. If you roast things, it adds flavor.
And you said sweet potatoes are great. You can roast them either to be sweet or they can be savory.
Yeah, they're versatile in that way. So if you like savory, you can go add a little salt, olive oil, throw in some rosemary, which is really good, or thyme, or even sage too. And then if you wanted to go on the sweet side, you could bake them with some olive oil, put some cinnamon, maybe a little bit of sugar, maybe even a little bit of salt just to kind of flavor it up.
All right.
But roasting it's going to caramelize it, and that's a great way to cook vegetables during this time without, and again, you can add a little salt. Salt's still good. It's just
And sweet potatoes bring all those other wonderful nutritional values too.
And at
don't they?
Thanksgiving, if you have the choice between a mashed potato and a sweet potato, go with the sweet potato because you got beta carotene. It's dark orange. It provides all those antioxidants that are great. And then for mashed potatoes, you have to add a lot of salt to it. So going towards the sweet potato is a way to kind of cut back on that
Wonderful.
as well.
Now, kind of a tempting chutney casserole, cranberry kind of relish can help wake up flavors too.
Exactly. Just putting a little dab on your plate. It's low in
Cut
sodium.
down on the gravy.
That's right. You cut back on the gravy, add
yeah.
a little cranberry sauce. Again, it's the same kind of genre of adding a lot of tartness and a different flavor sensation, whereas opposed to like having just a lot of fattening, salty things.
Now, what's that big old basket of rolls doing there?
I love bread so much, but if you are trying to watch your sodium, if you have high blood pressure or whatever, maybe just opting out, just letting
Does bread have a lot of sodium in it?
It does, and that, bread needs salt
wouldn't
to
know that.
bake, and that. But a lot of in our diets, the American's diet, we eat a lot of bread,
Yeah.
and that is a major component of our sodium.
I
that
did
we
not
get.
know that. So have an extra helping of sweet potatoes and forget the bread.
Yeah, and just pass over. Just let the bread basket go.
And sweet potatoes are tastier anyway. Marie, I think we're going to have a wonderful Thanksgiving that has maybe some unusual tweaks to it and a little less sodium.
Exactly. And again, you can use these procedures in your everyday meals.
Yeah. Every day should be a day to be thankful for what we have.
Exactly.
For the blessings we have in our life. We're going to ask you a little bit later about some of the wonderful fact sheets y'all have because at Clemson's Home Garden Information Center, we're always emphasizing the garden part. But y'all, you home people, you've got a lot of pamphlets there that can help us to have better nutrition and a safer kitchen
food
environment.
safety and nutrition. We got a lot of them, especially for the holiday season. We have several good ones for that as well.
Okay. Well, we'll get all those and we'll get those leads at the end of the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.